So we need to think of our workers more like customers. Now, our marketing people have had years to develop these tools, and we're beginning to think of some of these tools, like they have had customer resource management. Well, we're beginning to have CRM type tools for candidates, but we really haven't thought about those kind of tools for our workforce at large, our alumni, or people who have not reached the stage that they're candidates. Because it's possible now, with everybody having their profile online via LinkedIn or Facebook, for in some categories of your workers, for you to kind of know the whole population there is of that worker. I mean, one example for Yahoo, which is where I know, there's not that many web designers in the world. And Yahoo at one time had the lion's share of them, and they've all gone out. So the Yahoo alumni are some of the best web designers there are. So it's possible to keep an audience of web designers engaged and interested in what you're doing, and then have them come in and out to work on gigs. But you have to, if we treated the web designer like crap on the way out, are we ever going to get them back in the door? No, we're not. And we need to think about what are the workplace rules that are no longer relevant. When I was at Yahoo, one of the things that just struck me was a lot of the people we hired were MBAs from the most elite schools in the country, engineers from MIT, PhDs, people who had never gotten a B+ in their life, always A's. And one man literally had a PhD from MIT, and he was a great engineer, and he got promoted to a manager. So he had his first performance review as a manager, and on a scale of 1 to 5, he was rated a 3, meets expectations. He completely fell apart. I've never seen anyone unravel. It was completely painful. Cried. I've gotten A's in every course in my life. He was Asian. There was a very big pride there. And he talked to everyone in HR, and they were devastated. So I said, I'm going to talk to him myself, which I didn't normally talk to people who were, but he was having such a meltdown. And he said, I'm sorry. I can't work at a place that thinks I'm average. I cannot work at a place because I'm not average. His performance as a manager was really not quite average yet. He was really coming up. At the end of the day, he left the company. We could not retain him. It was very, very sad. And that's when I decided to take the scale of 1 to 5 off the performance reviews. Who needs a number by a performance review, and how does that help top talent get better? You should have seen the, what are we going to do? How are we going to rank people? When we went to give out rewards, we just ranked people from top to bottom, and we just gave out rewards accordingly. But of course, the first year we did that, I caught some of our HR team kind of putting them in 5 categories instead of, going back to what we knew. And, but those are examples of the kinds of rules that don't make sense in this new world. Yet we're developing whole systems around those rules and trying to get it right. And then, we're thinking always about recruiting and retaining, but what we really need to think about is how do we build sort of a best brand that just becomes this magnet, or as the guy from Nike, John, said, creates this talent dynasty. Stop talking about the job, but start thinking about the experience you will have. Stop hiring employees, but finding segments of workers. Some segments will be your move the needle people that you want to put all your resources toward. Other segments might be, we don't care who does this work, just let it get done, and we don't even need to meet you. Go get the work done, get the result, we're happy. Don't talk about your great career you're going to have here. One of the things IBM told us when we were writing Brand for Talent was, we used to be the #1 brand everybody wanted to work with on the college campus. And suddenly we changed our business model. We went to the services. We were competing against Google and Deloitte. And we started talking about join us and stay your whole career. And these people were like, oh. What? I don't want to work here. My whole career, IBM, yuck. And they said, we had to really rethink what we did. And they did. And so their brand on campus became Start at IBM. It was, this is a great place to start. Now, they wanted to figure out who are the best people and keep them a long time, but don't tell them that yet. Just get them in the door and get them started. And then hopefully they stay. General Mills said they used to go to college campus and they'd talk about, oh, the Pillsbury Doughboy and Lucky the Leprechaun and Twix are, you know, for kids and whatever. And everyone grew up on those cereals and thought, I want to work for General Mills. Now they were like asking all these questions about things going out on the social media, finding out who worked there last year and how it was. They realized they had to like stop talking about our brands and they started talking about your brand. So their tagline on a college campus became, our brand, your legacy. We're going to now talk about you and what this means for you. Much more of a good way to get people. And how do you get that engagement and results that you're measuring the results, not just trying to build loyalty? During my 7 years at Yahoo, I made some mistakes. And I loved, what's your name who's sitting next to me? Betty. Betty said this morning, I love it when people tell us what they didn't do well or what sucks. I thought it's good. But we were kind of building loyalty at Yahoo. And we got bigger and bigger. And what we found out was we had created this culture of extreme loyalty to Yahoo. But we had a lot of people that were hanging on, staying for the wrong reasons. Were there because they love Yahoo, but they really didn't love what they were doing anymore. They weren't really committed to the cause. They were just hanging on. And it was really, really tough to kind of face that music. And we did a layoff where we had to get rid of some of our most loyal employees because they weren't what we needed going forward. Very hard. So we had to move away from loyalty to the company and more to, are you interested in our mission and our vision and our values and in getting to where we want to go? That became the measurement. So I'm not going to have a test, but just think to yourself, what are you doing, if anything, for Alex? Now, we already talked about, and Vinny talked about this quite a bit, what's going on demographically and in the workplace in general. You all know this, but baby boomers are retiring next year is when we all turn 65. The first of us, not me. I'll only be turning 56, just in case you're wondering. But by 2029, we'll all be 65. But guess what? A lot of us will still be working. Some of us will be working part-time, and we'll be asking for the same things as Alex. In fact, we might have an RV and go around to karaoke contests ourselves. Might be fun. Might be fun. I'm kind of good at karaoke myself. We have, you know, lots of technology that requires new skills and new ways to, but enables new ways to work. And we have all these emerging economies with all this talent. We talked about the women. We talked about technology. But we don't have the right talents in the right places. There's a mismatch of talent as to where it is and where we need it. This is one of the companies I do a lot of work for is Manpower. And they do a survey every year in the US of the most difficult to hire jobs. And guess what they are? Regular core jobs that we all hire every day. They're not any needle in the haystack. So we have this sort of a war for talent. But it's targeted talent because recruiting even our core talent can become our biggest challenge, and we have to find new sources for that talent, and we have to figure out how to have a global talent brand that delivers the right talent to us. Because people will travel for those jobs, but we may have to actually go places to get the talent we need. So it's very, very interesting. And we've also covered this quite a lot, but we have to be where talent is. We have to find them where they are. And we have to be aware that it's a double-edged sword. Where we can find everyone we need, great, but we can no longer control the message. The message is out there, the horse is out of the barn, so we have to live every day the way we want to be perceived, or our brand is kind of screwed. And so that's how I kind of came up with this concept to brand for talent. It's to develop, based on your employer brand, a targeted marketing strategy to reach specific segments of potential workers to deliver the results that you need so that you reach the customers you need. So you got to kind of think of your brand. You know, Jason talked about branding inside and branding your initiatives on the HRIT side, but there's lots of brands a company has. You have this consumer brand where people will come to you as a place to buy. And then you have this employer brand, the people who are working there, that's sort of the glue that holds everyone there and helps everybody figure out how to get things done. And then you have to sort of use that brand then to reach out to talent. And it's not one size fits all. I discovered this one day, a horrible day in my life. One day I woke up and I went to work and I sat in my cube and the head of technology came to my cube. And I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Have you seen the billboard on 101? I'm like, "No." So there's this billboard with this huge math equation. And it's like, I can't even tell you how you got to it. It was some kind of the first 10 digits of the square root of the blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it turns out that in order to solve this math problem, you have to write a computer program. So guess what every programmer in the Silicon Valley was doing that morning? Solving that math problem. And by the way, they put one in Redmond, Washington, right outside of Microsoft. And once you got this 10 digits, you went to the 10digits.com, and it said, "Congratulations, you're smart enough to work at Google." And then, once you went to that website, they gave you a lot of other tests, and you could figure out if you were smart enough to get an interview. And what was every reporter in the Silicon Valley doing? And what got written up in Scientific American and in India, in the newspaper, and all over? It was brilliant, I have to say, the best branding I've ever seen in my life. But to our CTO, we were never going to be able to hire an intelligent software programmer again because they would all go to Google. So we had to figure out, how do we change our brand to be like edgy, to compete against this Google brand, this big monster that's out there? And what we realized was we had something different to offer than they did. So we had to figure out, what is it that differentiates us from them and what differentiates them from us? And we went to our great sources of information, our recruiters and our candidates. And we asked our recruiters, why do people come to work for Yahoo versus Google? And we asked our candidates that came to work for us, and we asked the candidates that went to work for Google. And we found out something amazing. When someone decided to join us, they did it because they got to meet their boss, know what their job was, and meet their team and see where they were going to sit, and that was important to them. When they went to Google because they weren't pinned in by this job and this boss, and so we were hiring a different type of person, which kind of can tell you where both companies have kind of gone too, kind of interesting. But we used as our sort of experience was, we're not looking for somebody who can just solve a math problem. We're looking for someone who can solve real problems for the biggest audience in the world. So our brand became, how big can you think? Not just solve a problem. Think big for this audience of 500 people. But when we realized that we had that edgy brand for technology people, it didn't work for creative people. And we had this sort of, what do we do now? We need one brand for our technologists, one brand for our web people. How many different brands do we need? And we went back to our employer brand. We said, you know, we keep the same employer brand, the way that we package who we are so that our employees can deliver that to the customers. But then we have to use a different variation of that employment brand to sort of reach out to talent, to get the right talent, the right time, and the right place. And so you may have a couple of different variations of how you go out there. Oops. Think of every sort of stage in the life cycle that a worker might have with you. From the time they sort of haven't even thought about working for you, but they sort of hear about you as a place to work. Because we can all name a bunch of companies and we can sort of, we've formed an impression what it might be like to work at that company. So what do you want them to think about when they hear about you? And then when they engage with you in a candidate, what does that experience need to look like? And then when they onboard, what is that like? And then while they work there, what is the experience that they have? And then when they leave, what is that like? So each one of these experiences, I think that John said he had identified 96 touch points that a worker might have in just his project. There are many, many touch points in this cycle. And by the way, you can't work on all of them at once. You have to start with the biggest pain point. But unfortunately, what we've done in HR, because we are so siloed, is we often have the recruiting team working on one part, and maybe L&D or business partners or rewards working on other parts, and they don't tie together. So my advice to you is, when you brand even the HRIT effort, it's got to tie in to this employer brand. It's got to work with all of it. And it's got to be about what the business is at its core, what you promise to the people who work there, what you promise to the customers. It's got to answer that really fundamental question, what's in it for me to work here? And what's going to keep me here every day? Now, in order to have a legendary employer brand, your experience has to be reliable. You have to actually deliver what you promise. This is more important than ever before, because if you sit and promise a bunch of things and then you don't deliver, not only is that one person you promised it to, your audience, who may decide to walk out the door, they're going to tell everyone they know that I was promised all these things and I didn't get them, and post up on Facebook, today's my last day at your company because they didn't live up to the expectations I had. Goodbye.